The first time they struck Earth, they thought it was just a tactical operation, quick, clean, efficient. A warning shot, they claimed. 2 cities leveled, 4 million dead in under 3 minutes. That was their version of restraint. But they didn't understand humans, not really. In the aftermath, there wasn't grief. Not at first. There was silence, the kind that settles just before a wildfire rips through dry forest. Governments scrambled to assess the damage, while the people, the ones who had nothing to lose, looked up at the skies and didn't see stars anymore. They saw targets. I was stationed at a remote lunar outpost when the attack happened. Got the feed 10 minutes late. My name? Doesn't matter. Rank, background, none of that matters now. What matters is what came next. You see, they hit us thinking we'd fold, because that's what their species would have done. They expected surrender, diplomacy, maybe even desperation. But Earth responded with something they couldn't calculate. Pure human fury. It started with volunteers, not soldiers, not trained men in uniforms. No, it was cargo haulers, scrapyard engineers, hackers living off ration tubes in orbital shuttles. The broken, the outcast, the ones with too much loss and nothing left to fear. They came out of nowhere, building ships from rust and vengeance. The UN didn't even approve the counteroffensive. It wasn't a military operation. It was personal. A hunt. The aliens, the Vor, were a calculated species. 6-limbed reptilian bastards who believed emotions were a weakness. That was their first mistake. They couldn't comprehend how vengeance could fuel innovation, or how grief could make a man learn warp mechanics in a week just to stuff a bomb inside a ship hull. They called us primitive, so we showed them what primitive rage looked like. The first strike back wasn't clean. A smuggler's ship, modified with stolen tech and scrap metal, blasted through their border patrol. It exploded right inside their orbital dockyard. No survivors. Not on their side, anyway. The pilot knew he wouldn't be coming back. And he didn't care. He left a message behind, though, burned into the enemy's comm systems. This is for New Glasgow. That's when they realized it wasn't war anymore. It was a hunt, and we weren't after land or resources, we were after blood. I remember sitting in that command bunker on Mars Base Alpha, watching the footage. All over the outer systems, humans were banding together. Former enemies, old criminal syndicates, rogue scientists. They were united now, not by politics, but by revenge. Whole factions that once hated each other were now trading weapons, tech, and names of Vor colonies. It spread like fire across dry grass. I'd be lying if I said I didn't feel something twisted inside me watching all this. Not pride. It was darker than that. It was satisfaction. The kind only a man who's lost everything feels when he sees his enemy bleeding. But the Vor didn't back down. Not yet. Arrogant as ever, they sent emissaries, called us savages, offered reparations, promised to guide us into peaceful integration. That was their second mistake. One of our boys met their ambassador, took the meeting, smiled politely, then slit the bastard's throat on a live transmission broadcast across the galaxy. No more negotiations, no more talks, no more Earth playing nice. We weren't diplomats. We were hunters now, and the stars would remember that forever. Word spread fast in the Vor territories. The humans weren't playing by any interstellar rules, treaties, or codes of war. They didn't announce attacks. They didn't target military installations exclusively. They hit supply lines, communication hubs, civilian colonies that had sent even a single credit toward the war machine. The Vor Empire, once cold and calculated, began to panic. They had never seen a species fight like this, not with such unpredictability, not with such cruelty. And I was right in the middle of it. I was assigned to a Black Ops unit called the Pack. No official records, no chain of command, just a kill list and a mutual agreement. Take down every Vor world, one by one, and never stop until there was no one left to remember them. Our first mission was a border colony on the edge of Vor-controlled space. Intel said it was a research outpost. Turns out it was also a breeding facility, incubating future soldiers. We didn't waste time with speeches. We dropped in fast, masked by the debris field from a previous battle. There were only 5 of us, each armed to the teeth with experimental tech, none of which was tested. We didn't care. If it blew up in our faces, so be it. The facility was full of young ones, half-grown Vors in nutrient tanks, twitching and snarling behind glass. Their caretakers panicked. They begged. One even offered coordinates to another Vor supply convoy if we spared them. I still remember what Cade, our heavy weapons guy, said before he lit the place up. No more deals, you hit Earth first. We razed it to the ground. No survivors, no mercy. When we got back to base, Command didn't reprimand us. Hell, they promoted us. At that point, the Human Alliance realized something that changed the course of everything. The war wasn't going to be won with strategy. It was going to be won with fear. So we gave them fear. Word leaked from Vor prisoners, what little we took alive, that their citizens were having nightmares about humans. That some mothers were killing their own hatchlings, afraid they'd grow up into soldiers and provoke another attack. We'd become their bogeyman. And we leaned into it hard. I won't lie, it took a toll. There were nights when I stared at the ceiling of my barracks, wondering if we'd gone too far. If we were becoming monsters. Then I'd see a report. Another Vor cruiser dropping explosives into human colonies. Another 1,000 dead civilians. And all that guilt vanished like smoke. This wasn't about morality anymore. It was survival. It was payback. But even among us, cracks were forming. Our pilot, Ran, started drinking harder than usual. He'd lost a wife and 2 kids in the first attack. He was the one who volunteered for the suicidal drops, always eager to take out a few more Vor. Said every kill made it easier to sleep. I didn't believe him. Then there was Hale, the tech guy. Quiet, brilliant, but haunted. He started building a list, not just of Vor targets, but human collaborators, the ones who sold data to the enemy during the early days. He called it his second war. Said we had traitors to deal with once the Vor were finished. Even I started to feel the shift. The war had changed us, not just on the battlefield, but inside. We were becoming something else, something that didn't belong in a post-war world. But that was a problem for later. For now we had a new target, Vor Prime, their homeworld, deep in the center of their territory, protected by more fleets than we could count. Nobody sane would attempt it, which is why we decided to go. Because the Vor needed to learn something the hard way. Once you strike humans, they'll never stop hunting you. Not until your blood stains every corner of the galaxy. Vor Prime wasn't just their capital, it was a symbol, their holy ground. Every enemy that had ever tried to set foot there had been obliterated before breaking the outer ring of their planetary defense grid. We didn't care. The plan wasn't clean, it wasn't elegant, it was desperate, brutal and suicidal, just the way we liked it. We knew going in that no fleet could get close, so we didn't send a fleet. We sent ghosts, small cloaked corvettes packed with the worst kind of men, those who had nothing left to live for. They were ex-cons, war criminals, deserters who had seen the Vor kill their families, men like me. Our corvette, Scourge, was rigged to look like space debris. We floated dead in space for 3 days near their patrol lanes. No lights, no power, just oxygen and silent hatred. Vor patrols passed by us twice. Never suspected a thing. Their sensors weren't designed to detect spite. When the moment came, it was chaos. We surged forward with backup from 2 other units and a hacked navigation relay. The Vor's systems went blind for 18 seconds. That was all we needed. I'll never forget the sight of Vor Prime from orbit. It looked peaceful, serene even. Glittering oceans, purple forests, majestic architecture, beautiful. and all I could think was, burn it. We came down hot, scorching atmosphere, weapons hot, hull groaning under re-entry, landed right in the middle of one of their largest civic centers, which, according to intel, was also a war coordination hub. They were celebrating some cultural ritual when we hit. A sky full of ceremonial lights turned into a firestorm as our drop pods slammed through towers and bodies. Screams erupted. Civilians ran. Guards were slow to respond. They weren't expecting death to rain from the sky. We moved fast. Every room, every corridor, we cleared like demons. 4 soldiers fought back, but their tactics were slow. Predictable. They weren't prepared for this kind of warfare. Not the way humans did it. Not street to street, close quarters, no rules brutality. We planted charges throughout the building, but our mission wasn't just destruction. We were there to leave a message. We took over their main broadcast tower, burned their flags on live holoscreens, forced their population to watch as one of our men, Anders, dragged their high commander in front of the camera and held a blade to his throat. Anders looked dead inside. The Vor had killed his son back on Titan Station. He didn't scream, he didn't gloat, he just said, "This is for everyone you burned," and slit the alien's throat so the whole system could see. That's when the transmission cut. We knew our time was up. Vor forces were closing in, their skies filling with gunships. Our window for extraction was gone. We weren't leaving. I was one of the lucky few who made it out. A backup team grabbed me after I was blown clear from the main blast, half my body burned and bleeding, spent 3 weeks in a coma. Woke up with metal where bone used to be. They said Vor Prime never recovered. The planet wasn't destroyed, but its spirit was. Panic spread like infection. Some sectors broke away from the Empire. Others went silent. Their propaganda collapsed overnight. And that's when things got worse. Because the Vor, cornered and humiliated, decided to escalate. No more tactical strikes, no more precision attacks. They brought out their extinction-class weapons, and this time they aimed straight at Earth. They called it the Judgment Ray. A relic of ancient Vor warfare, banned even by their own ancestors. A weapon capable of burning a planet's atmosphere in minutes, melting oceans, glassing continents. It hadn't been used in over 10,000 cycles, not because they couldn't, but because they never needed to. Until now. The Vor had lost too much. Their pride, their capital, their grip on the galaxy. All taken by the one enemy they underestimated the most, us. And like any wounded animal, they lashed out the only way they knew how, through annihilation. We intercepted the transmission on a secure frequency, one of their high command members issuing a single phrase that made every man in our command room go silent. "End terror!" Panic erupted across Earth's colonies. Every military asset was rerouted. Civilian evacuations began. Global governments finally stopped arguing for the first time in human history. And still, it wasn't enough. We knew we couldn't stop the beam from firing once it was charged. The Vor's superweapon had a fleet guarding it the size of Jupiter's orbit, positioned in a rogue system hundreds of light years away. Even getting close would be suicide. But we didn't need to get close. We needed one shot. A prototype rail cannon had been under construction in Neptune's shadow, something built out of paranoia and black budget funding. It was never meant to be used. Just a deterrent. But when they showed me the schematics, I knew it could work. One massive slug, fired faster than light, aimed at a reactor buried beneath their weapon. The math barely added up. 1 in a million, maybe worse. But we'd already done the impossible. What was one more miracle? We assembled a launch team in record time. No sleep, no ceremony, just cold silence and determined hands. The cannon fired. For 3 minutes the galaxy held its breath. And then, silence. No explosion, no confirmation, just silence. Until a ripple of static broke across all systems, Vor communications lighting up in chaos, shouting, screaming, confusion, and finally, footage from a hidden drone. The Judgment Ray was gone. Not damaged, not disabled, gone. The slug had hit with such force that it collapsed the surrounding asteroid base into itself. Thousands of Vor officers died instantly. More importantly, the weapon was reduced to space dust. There were cheers on Earth. Tears, celebrations that lasted for days. They called us heroes. Statues were planned, parades organized. But none of us smiled, because we knew what was coming next. The Vor weren't just angry anymore. They were desperate, and desperation breeds horror. 2 weeks later, we picked up scattered signals from deep space. Dead systems, empty colonies, entire planets wiped clean, without a trace of human or Vor life. Not a single survivor, just radiation signatures and twisted metal. Something else was out there. Not Vor, not human. Something older, something we had awakened with all this war. The Vor had struck humans, and we had hunted them to the brink of extinction. But in doing so, we'd made enough noise to attract attention from the dark beyond the stars. And whatever was coming didn't care who started the fight. It only cared that there was blood to spill. They called it the Silence. Not because it was quiet, but because everything it touched went quiet. Whole star systems gone, communications dead, no distress calls, no black box recoveries. Just silence. The Vor were the first to encounter it. We intercepted their last transmission, static-ridden, panicked, broken into alien shrieks. What we could translate wasn't comforting. It has no shape, it has no fear, it feeds on war. We gave it war. We didn't believe it at first, thought it was just panic, propaganda, maybe even a trap, until our own outposts started vanishing. First it was New Osaka, a thriving orbital hub near Saturn's outer ring. 1 minute it was there, bustling with traders and repair crews. The next, it was just gone, not destroyed, not debris, just erased. I was reassigned to a recon vessel, Black Arrow, tasked with investigating what was left of these sites. The answer was always the same. Nothing. No wreckage. No signs of life. Like someone had lifted the space clean and folded it into another reality. Our mission changed fast. Forget the Vor. Forget revenge. Now it was about survival. We started calling it the Reaper. Not because we knew what it was, but because it damn sure knew us. Every time we retaliated, it came closer. Every time we used high-powered weapons, it responded faster. It wasn't attacking blindly, it was watching, learning. The Vor, ironically, came crawling to us for help. The same species that glassed Earth's cities now begged for joint operations, tech exchange, even asylum for their civilians. Some in the command were ready to spit in their faces. But the top brass knew better. The enemy of my enemy is still my enemy, but if we don't work together, we're all corpses. We formed a joint task force, humans and Vor. A nightmare alliance if there ever was one. And I was picked to lead it. I didn't want the job. I hated the Vor with every fiber of my being, but I also knew how to kill, how to adapt, how to make decisions no one else had the stomach for. Our mission: find the source of the Reaper and stop it. The techs called it a conscious anomaly, a sentient black mass that fed on energy signatures tied to warfare, nuclear, plasma, matter disruption. The more we fought, the stronger it got. It wasn't killing out of malice, it was feeding. We traced the anomaly to a dead zone between spiral arms, a graveyard of ancient worlds and forgotten wars. The Vor had fought there eons ago, and apparently left something behind. Something they didn't understand. I still remember our approach. 2 human dreadnoughts, 3 Vor carriers, armed to the teeth. Everyone watching the dark like it was going to blink. And it did. The Reaper didn't come at us in a wave. It whispered into our systems. Lights flickered. Engines died. People started screaming about voices, memories of the dead, hallucinations of lost battles. Men shot themselves before it even reached the hull. And then it took one of the ships. No explosion, just a silent blink, and it was gone. We had no weapons that could touch it, no shields that could hold. The Vor scrambled. We fought to retreat. We barely made it out with a fraction of the fleet. Afterward, I was pulled into a closed-door meeting with human and Vor command. No politics, no pleasantries, just one question on the table. Can this thing be killed? I didn't answer right away, because deep down I wasn't sure. But I did know one thing. We made this. The blood we spilled, the hate we spread, the violence we normalized. It called something ancient. And now we had to pay the price. Earth changed after that. It wasn't the Reaper that broke us. It was the realization that everything we'd done to survive had summoned it. The parade stopped. The news feeds went dark. Every colony suddenly looked smaller, more vulnerable. No one cared about the Vor anymore. They weren't the threat. They were just the warning label we ignored. I was stationed at a deep-core base under Greenland when they gave us the order, prepare for the last war. They didn't call it that officially, but we all knew. The brass called it Project Solstice. A plan so insane it had to be human. They wanted to use Earth as bait. The theory was this. The Reaper fed on war energy. If we gave it the biggest surge it had ever seen, an orchestrated planet-wide event, it would come straight to us. But instead of just feeding it, we'd trap it. Not with weapons, with a cage of silence. The Vor had developed a prototype decades ago, a technology that could mute energetic signatures completely. No EM output, no heat, no kinetic distortion. They called it the null net. Too unstable to deploy during war, it was meant to be a defensive artifact, like hiding your world in a vacuum. We combined it with human quantum implosion fields and turned Earth into a ticking trap. The idea was to simulate a planetary meltdown, launch thousands of warheads, energy pulses, staged battles, and lure the Reaper in. Then we'd shut everything down in one synchronized beat. Instant silence. Starve it. Trap it. Or best-case scenario, kill it. They asked me to oversee ground command. Said they trusted me. I told them they were all mad. But I still said yes. The Vor sent their best engineers. We sent ours. Soldiers trained for years to fight aliens now trained to simulate war without actually killing each other. Explosions, weapons fire, fake massacres. It all looked real from space. Civilians were evacuated to lunar stations. Earth was about to become a theater, a trap dressed like a massacre. I stood on the cliffs outside what used to be New Toronto, staring up at the sky as it began. Fake missiles launched. Plasma towers erupted. Cities glowed like they were dying. It was all noise. That's what we humans were best at. Noise. The Reaper came within hours. Not as a fleet, as a shadow. It blocked out the stars, not metaphorically, literally. Whole constellations blinked away as it approached. The closer it got, the colder everything felt, even underground in bunkers designed to withstand planetary bombardment. Then, in the span of a breath, it was over us, hovering like death itself. And that's when we pulled the trigger. Every generator died, every heat signature cut. The world went black, silent, null. At first, nothing happened. Then came the scream. It didn't come through our ears, it came into our minds. Like a million souls crying out, starving, furious. It twisted the air, cracked walls, shattered bones. Men dropped dead without a mark, just gone inside. But the null net held. For the first time since this began, the Reaper stopped moving. We had caught it, trapped it in the dead heart of the species it had come to feed on. But nothing that old, that powerful, dies easily. It was still alive. And now we had to decide, Do we keep it trapped forever, or destroy Earth and take it with us? No one wanted to say it out loud. Not in the command rooms, not in the underground bunkers, not even in whispers over the encrypted channels. But we were all thinking the same thing. If this thing ever got out again, it wouldn't just destroy Earth, it would consume everything, every species, every light in the galaxy. We had to kill it, and there was only one way left. The idea came from a Vor scientist named Drav Keth, a twisted genius who used to oversee planetary cleansing operations. He hated humans, but hated the Reaper more, said it was an insult to all life, even theirs. His plan was simple, horrific, but simple. Detonate Earth's core, use the planet's natural magnetic field in conjunction with a coordinated implosion of the null net to collapse the Reaper's presence into a singularity, crushing it in on itself. No escape, no survival, just absolute annihilation. Only catch? It had to be done manually. We needed someone at ground zero, deep beneath the mantle, to activate the sequence at the exact moment the Reaper's consciousness reached peak absorption. If we jumped too early, it might escape. Too late, and it could corrupt the system. No drones, no remote detonation, just a person. I volunteered before they could finish the sentence. There wasn't much left of me anyway. My body was 40% metal. My mind haunted by too many faces I couldn't save. I'd hunted Vor across stars, watched men burn for revenge, killed for justice, killed for nothing. This would be the only death that meant something. They gave me a send-off, not a speech, just a nod. Some claps on the shoulder, a stiff drink with the last few men I trusted. No tears, just respect. The descent into the Earth's core was like falling through time. Layers of history, civilization, war, bone, fire. Down there, beneath the crust, it was quiet. Almost peaceful. Almost. I could feel the Reaper in my skull, like a fever, like a hunger that never ends. It knew I was coming. It tried to speak to me, bargain, threaten. I heard voices, my father's, my dead wife's, old comrades screaming in pain. It wanted me to feel regret, to hesitate. But it didn't understand humans. Regret is what pushes us forward. I reached the chamber. The core was glowing with energy, molten veins pulsing like the heartbeat of a dying god. The null net was fraying, flickering at the edges. We didn't have long. I keyed in the sequence. No turning back now. Earth would implode in under 60 seconds. I sat down on the edge of the chamber and looked up at the screen. A live feed of Earth's surface, the oceans, the mountains, the cities we once fought over, laughed in, bled for. And above it all, the Reaper. It was changing, reacting. It knew, it was trying to flee. But it was too late. I whispered the last words anyone would ever hear from me. You struck us first. We warned you. And then I hit the final trigger. The last thing I saw before the world went white was the Reaper tearing at the sky, clawing at space like a wounded beast, its shape flickering, collapsing in on itself. It wasn't a creature. It was an echo, a relic of war older than light itself. And for the first time since it arrived, it looked afraid. And then everything was gone. No fire, no screams, just a blinding pulse of light that washed across the stars, wiping the signal clean. Earth, our home, our cradle, our battlefield, imploded in absolute silence. But it wasn't the end, because humans don't die that easily. They found me, or what was left of me, orbiting in an emergency core capsule that had auto-launched at the last microsecond. I don't remember it. The system must have overridden the manual kill, some back door written in by engineers who still had hope. I woke up 3 weeks later on Europa Station, lungs burned, bones shattered, mind flickering between memories and ghosts. They told me Earth was gone, just a light in the dark now. But the Reaper was gone too. No trace, no anomaly, no static. The galaxy was quiet again. For now. They wanted to give me a medal, name ships after me, tell stories about the man who saved humanity. I told them to shove it, because I didn't save anything. We lost Earth. We lost billions of lives. We lost pieces of ourselves that can never come back. But we did one thing right. We made sure that the galaxy would never forget who we were. Not the Vor, not the Reaper, not any other species lurking in the void. We're not gods. We're not heroes. But we're something far more dangerous. We're human. And if you strike us, if you burn our homes and take our people, we won't fight you. We'll hunt you forever.